All right. It's Monday, 1 o'clock. Time to get the show on the road. Welcome back, team, to another Monday message. I'm super excited to be here. We have an extra special guest with us here today, Brandon Manley. If you guys are new, you may not have heard of Brandon just yet, but that'll change because he's kind of a big deal. He's a close personal friend of Stephen and Holly, for starters. He has come onto the scene, I mean, not that long ago. Seems like he just got here and built the team so quickly in a way that I have not seen very much in my time here with the Alliance. He's got one of the fastest growing teams in the entire company and the newest integrity partner too. So Brandon's got a lot of big things coming on, and he's going to share with you guys here in a little while. So please stick around for that. You definitely don't want to miss that. But first, let's talk about last week's numbers because I know we had a great week last week. I want to make sure we get this recognition out. So, again, recognizing everybody submitted issue pay business. This is submit business over 1,000 for last week. So, over 1,000, we got Camille, Ryan and Amma, Sabrina, Faith, Kapina, Brandy, Irma, Janet, Eric. Jumping up into the 2,000s, we got Mallory, Tom, Mercedes, Julian, David. Brianna just barely missing out on the 3,000 submit. Starting off at 3,000, we got Matthew, Mimi, Rachel, Rob, Chrissy, and kicking us off at 4,000, Haley, Mark, Aaron, 5,000, David, Rogers and Kim, 6,000, Matt A, Mike Guerra, Marissa Teet, Nick Greco, Andre Lee. Great job, guys, by the way. All right, now rounding out the top five weekly submitted, we got Dave O'Brien at $8,640.53 across 8 applications. Jeremico Edwards, $9,656 across 12 applications. Of course, the big boss himself, Stephen Davies, a little over 10,000 with 5 apps. Sydney W with $10,311.72, 7 apps. And Cleo, $10,765.60 across 4 applications. Top five we can submit it. Great job, guys. Love to see it. Love to see the growth. Okay, my favorite time. Top five weekly paychecks. So this is real money, not monopoly money, deposited into bank accounts. So I love this clip here. So we got Cleo with $4,609.56. Jeremico Edwards, $5,111.63. Chrisman with $6,242.82. David Helgeson with $6,600 $19.80. And number one weekly paycheck. Yes, we are counting your pockets, Mike. $10,194.19. All direct deposit for the week. Great job, guys. Okay, Freedom Leaderboard. We call it this because this is how you get free, right? Building a team, growing a business, growing an agency, just like Brandon has as well. So completed fast tracks for last week. We've got Irma and Matt, both with one completed fast track. We got Brandy here at the base shop. She works in the office and for herself. She got 6 fast tracks, and we also got 6 fast tracks as an office. So love to see that. Completed contracts for last week. David, Jason, and Brandy, Sabrina, all with one. And of course, the base shop, we have one as well. And the base shop also got 3 people enrolled in the pre-licensing course. Okay, I guess that's it. One quick note, we do have boot camp coming up this Saturday, guys. I know we've got a bunch of tickets sold already. If you haven't, go ahead and get those. You do not want to miss it. Got a lot of guest speakers coming through, more announcements coming here in another couple of days. Ooh, just kidding. Travel. So you beat me to the punch. So Steven is in Salt Lake City today, and you guys can kind of see Steven's run there. He's traveling a lot. He always does. Do yourself a favor, especially those that are recruiting. You don't have to know everything about everything. You have to put people in front of the people that know the stuff, right? So screenshot this, look at where Steven's going to go, recruit in those areas. Steven frequents the same places, right, month to month. So get an Indeed account, the free account, whatever you got to do, get in front of people, get them to these places. Let Steven close the deal. Let us do the heavy lifting, build your team for you. So of course, we got boot camp coming up, just touched on that. And following that, we got Stage to Success, guys. Go ahead and get your tickets now. You will not regret it. The training is impeccable. It never fails. They're doing so many new different things and experimenting with things with getting great feedback from it. You're going to learn a tremendous amount. You're going to learn from the team. And I've never seen a company where everyone will just tell you what they're doing, right? All these names you see making all this money, they'll just tell you. just ask them, right? They'll tell you from stage. They'll tell you at lunch, right? So get to these events. It's not what you know, it's who you know, and you get to know people by coming to these events. So get your tickets. Okay, I think that's it. All right. So now I'm going to stop talking because we have somebody who's just been an incredible figure in the company since he stepped foot here. We've got Brandon Manley coming up to the stage to talk about his business, hopefully speaking to you guys and your business. Take lots of notes, record it if you have to. I think this will be up on YouTube later. But Brandon, whenever you're ready, man, the floor is yours and let us have it.
All right. Well, great job, Omar.
Appreciate
You
you.
killed it, man. I wish I had somebody intro my calls like that, but it's just me that does it. Yeah, guys, happy to be here. I hope you guys take note of that stuff at the beginning too, because I want to talk a little bit about sales and recruiting today, and man, that's like the key to everything is getting them to events from what I found. You get them around people that maybe they don't relate to you. And this isn't a knock, but maybe they just don't relate to you as well as they will somebody in that meeting. So I could care less who they relate to. I'm just trying to get them around other people in the alliance because like we talk a lot about our culture, the events and stuff like that. And I don't know, for me, it's one of those things that I think you give it a go and try to sell it, but until they come, they won't actually be able to. You can't almost put it into words what they're going to experience, and you'll hear that from people, right? Um, so yeah, and as you guys know, hopefully, and by the way, I don't know if this thing's open for questions, but if so, put your questions in there. I'm happy to go through some of your questions. I'll go through what I kind of had planned to talk to you guys, but a lot of you were at the event in January and saw six of us get the integrity partner, and that was a really cool moment. I mean, you just think about everything that you've done, the sacrifices that you made to get to where you are, and seeing some reward for that was pretty cool, right? And I'm not saying like obviously you got the financial reward and stuff like that, but just kind of being recognized was a big deal, and especially when you had I think I almost thought we were in trouble at first. Like I really thought we were in trouble because Andy calls meeting at like 9 a.m. Then they come walking in there, and then right behind Andy and Jane is Tess Grace, who's really high up over there. Then Stephen Prince, and then oh, I can't forget that's bad to say on a recorded call. There was another person there. And so like I thought we were about to get the hammer thrown down on us, trying to get us to grow. And but they were rewarding us. And it's like I'll let you talk to Davies a little bit more in depth about the integrity partnership, but I feel like the six of us got the best of both worlds when it comes to the integrity partnership. And so the thing that I think it did that really helped was it showed a lot of people that you can get to the integrity partner office too. I had people that I don't know. I think for a period of time they kind of slowed down on the recruiting side and just wanted to do sales because they really didn't know if it was attainable to get to partner. And I think that this kind of opened the door for that because, like I said, the details of it is it's the best of both worlds. And if you look at it, I don't know. I don't know. Like I'm kind of hesitant to say some things because I don't know what I can and cannot say yet, and I really don't want to get in trouble this early on in the partnership. But um, what I will say is everybody that I looked at in that room had over a $500,000 organization. And so, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about what I'm doing with my team now, as far as selling and building goes, and kind of go from there. So, any questions you have, I don't know if this chat works on y'all's end, but please feel free to ask me any questions. But I mean, the biggest thing is like, what is integrity looking for, right? And how in depth they look at things too. I mean, for example, like if your whole, like some of you guys are in Western North Carolina, if your whole organization was in Western North Carolina and Helene comes through, that's going to wipe you out for a little bit of time, right? I mean, I know that they were without internet and some other things up there, and these are things that integrity thinks about. Right. So they think about things that I wouldn't, I mean, makes sense after you hear them, why they think about these things. But in the moment, when you're thinking about it, it's like, well, if my whole organization's in Western Carolina and we're doing $1 million a month, they're going to want me. Well, yeah, maybe. I don't know. But from what I understand, they're looking for you to have a diverse organization. And they're not looking for you to just have, one leg that's killing it and the rest of them, not doing much. They're looking for a stable organization, which goes right into what we talk about when we talk about building. We talk about width for profitability and depth for stability, right? They're looking for the stability across multiple legs. And so I always tell my guys, like, selling is something that I think we can get pretty good at. I mean, you guys have Stephen Davies as a mentor, and I'll be 100% honest. All my sales training is from Stephen Davies and James Coleman. I stole all of their stuff. I came to these boot camp. Like, if I was available this Saturday, there's no doubt I would be in Arden, North Carolina for that boot camp. Just because I learned something every time. And luckily I get to travel. Sometimes me and Davies run into people and I let him do as much of the talking, because selfishly I'm there for myself, what I can get out of it. And I think that's how you should be too, right? Like, you want to bring people along, but also when you're in those meetings, like, that's really where I decide to be selfish, and I'm trying to get the most out of it if I can. Not be the smartest person in the room. I don't care about that. I want to learn things from guys who have been around longer than me, and Steven's certainly been around longer than me. So I always pick up something. So I always tell people, like, what you're doing, like, you're selling to pay the bills. Is really what it comes down to. You're selling to pay the bills and get good at it so that you can teach other people how to do it. Now, that does not take away from recruiting right away. And I know that's a hard thing for some people to think about. It's like, how am I going to train somebody? Well, you're actually in the best position I think you could be in, because one, nobody's expecting you to be able to teach them everything. So you're going to have more help. Versus if you've been here 2 years and you know it pretty well, Steven's going to look at you and be like, what do you mean? Like, train them up, right? So you're in a good position to start recruiting. Like, I started recruiting right away. And I guess you could say I didn't know any better. I didn't. And so I was told that we sell and recruit. So I started recruiting. First person I ever recruited was Vinny Napoli, and he's still here. If some of you guys might recognize his name, he's here in North Carolina. He's one of my top producers, every year. And so you don't need to know everything to start recruiting. You just need to be good at connecting them with people who can help them out. Right. And that's what I got good at. I mean, if it wasn't for Clay Murtis, Terry Edwards, and Danny Johnson, I don't know. I'm not calling Andy to ask him what product to go with in the house. I mean, me and Vinny would kind of look at each other like idiots, right? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. He doesn't know what he's doing, but we figured it out. So it's not like people will stick with you. They don't, this sounds kind of harsh, but they don't, like, you're thinking a lot about what they perceive of you in this business. They could care less what you do in this business. Like, they are going to look at these leaderboards, like those leaderboards that Omar just had up. They're going to look at those and see people making money. So to them, I mean, I hate to say it, like, but you're not the first thing on their mind of like, hey, how's Brandon doing? They don't care. They see other people succeeding. What if I suck? Like, that's what they're thinking about. Or if I'm just getting started, they know I'm just getting started, but they see the potential. So I'm quickly trying to connect them. So don't let the sales side hold you back, because the sales side, I always get people started in final expense. I don't know about you. I always get people started at final expense because I don't say it's easier. I say it's quicker. I can get them making money quicker, because everybody else out there is telling them how easy it is to make 100,000, blah, blah, blah. And then their activity level is down here and their expectation of what they should make is up here. You guys, again, stole that from Stephen Davies. He told me about that story. Right. So, and then you recruit to build an organization. And your goal is to build an organization that, in my goal is that integrity would want, right? And so when that time comes, you want to have a stable organization, and there's no benefit of delaying recruiting. I get it. Like, I hear this all the time. Like, well, hey, I want to see how it goes for me before I get into it. Again, not to beat a dead horse. They don't care. But two, what if you don't talk to that person and I do? You think like, oh, it's your buddy from high school that I just recruited. Do you think I'm going to get them up and running and just hand them back over to you? Because I mean, I like to think I'm a nice person, but you should have reached out to them. Like, I'm not going to just hand back over somebody because you have a relationship, but we're too scared to reach out to them, right? Or maybe it's not that. Maybe just not confident enough, and plug them in. So here's another thing that you'll get a lot of times is I don't have the time to sell and recruit, and I would just tell you that's a scheduling problem. And because I've got a lot of guys doing this, right? Like, when you look at our sales, I'll just go off on a tangent on sales real quick. When you go off on the sales like, we have a lot to offer people. I mean, we got in-person sales always, right? We got virtual sales opportunities. A lot of you guys, I know some of you guys on that leaderboard. I know what you're doing, like how you're getting your business. You got the virtual side. You got these seminars, which if you're not doing seminars, I think, like, I was just talking with last week when I called like 4 or 5 people because I just feel like we're missing the boat when it comes to these seminars. But you have more to recruit people too. I just got off phone. Matter of fact, like an hour ago, I was on the phone with a guy from Prime America who I love talking to people from Prime America. He's securities licensed. You know what I mean? So I have more to sell him on, and I sell him on the trajectory, right? And that's what we offer with the sales side. A lot of people are out there just talking about, hey, final expense, build a team, get really rich, blah, blah, blah. I'm selling them on the trajectory upwards. And I can go into that a little bit deeper here, but we've got a lot that we're pushing people to. And as somebody in a sales position, you got to keep it simple. And I know that sounds so cliche. It's like, but what I mean by that is you got to be consistent with the activity and be consistent getting leads. If you're not getting leads, I mean, I'm not saying that warm market isn't a great way. It's funny because sometimes you talk to people from WFG or Prime America, and that's the only way they come up with their business. And then you get access to leads, and then they just completely stop prospecting. You know what I mean? And so it's funny how that works, but I'm not disagreeing with working your warm market because you might as well get to them before somebody else does. But at some point, you're going to need leads. And I actually heard Mike Guerra kind of was talking about this at the boot camp in Atlanta, and he was relating it to a food truck. It's like, okay, like sales is up and down, right? But one thing that's consistent is your lead flow. You've got to have lead flow coming in. So that's what I mean by keeping it simple. It's just like what activity you got to put in, and how many leads you need. So that's what you need to be doing every week. If you have a bad week this week, guess what? You still got to buy leads. And his example is like the food truck. Like if I have a food truck and it rains all week and I didn't get to sell any of that food, do I just call it quits? No, I buy food the next week, right? I've got to replenish that food so that I can give out fresh food. Same thing with leads. Just if you have a down week does not mean you shouldn't get leads. It's actually quite the opposite when you think about it logically. Like you need more leads because you need to have a big week, right? So, and I know there's the cost side of it too, but there's going to be a cost in business. And I know that investing can be scary. I'm probably in the past 2 years, I mean, I've really been investing heavy into my business, and even with the more money you make, it doesn't just mean like all of a sudden, like, oh, I don't care if 5,000 is going here, 5,000, like I'll make that back. Yes, I do think that, but it's not that it's not scary in a way, I think, but here's my thought process on it. If I don't go all in with it, I'm always kind of like hovering back and not throwing all my eggs in one basket here, then am I ever going to really grow to where I need to get to where integrity would be interested in me? Probably not. I don't think that you're like, without investing, it's incredibly challenging to build a big business in this arena. And that's again scary for people because most people are used to jobs where everything's included, benefits, hourly pay. All I know it's scary, but it's stuff you have to do, right? So and then like going back to the point of like, I don't know if I have time to recruit. Well, again, like let's just take a look at your schedule. I've done this. I mean, we've got more people recruiting now than we have in a while. And I think it's a lot to do with the integrity partnership and people seeing the opportunity there. But like you can mix recruiting in, right? So there's a couple ways that I've heard people do this. Most of my guys that are recruiting heavy are doing virtual sales. So they're mixing in 3 hours a day of recruiting calls, right? So they just block it out on their schedule. It's not that they didn't have time, but instead of them spending it all day trying to make sales, they carve out a 3 hour block. Or I've got other people who are running out in the field and they're just good, like a Vinny. Vinny runs about 3 days in the field and does 3 days recruiting. So these are absolutely things that you can add in, but it's not going to be one of those things to where it's just always convenient, right? Like you may be following up with people on the way to an appointment, right? Like these are things you can mix it into your schedule without ruining your sales schedule, right? So it's like, how long are you going to wait before you do that? And are you going to feel like most of the people that have, I did not ask him to say this, but I had Marcus Richardson on my team call maybe a year ago. And that's like one of the first things that he brought up was how he regrets in his first 10 years in the business, how he really only focused on sales and he didn't focus on building. And now he's into a different phase and he wishes he would have started sooner. Right. So you'll hear that kind of throughout the alliance of people who didn't build immediately. They regret that time that they wasted Because who's to say they wouldn't have found the Megan Wood or the Terry Edwards or the Stephen Holly Davies? Who's to say they wouldn't have found that person? And now their organization's doing 500,000 instead of, whatever they produce. Right. So yeah, we're mixing it in. I think right now, if you've been with us a while, or if you're just getting started, and again, I feel like some of these things I say might sound cliche, but I think we have the best setup right now since I've been here 6 years. I've been with the Alliance 6 years, and I feel like we have the best setup to recruiting people into a system. It's not that we're getting, this company's got virtual and we don't. We got virtual now. It's not the leads. We got leads if you want to go into seminars, right? And so a lot of times when it comes to recruiting, it's like, how are you recruiting them in, right? Like most of my conversations is just, I mean, if you want an idea of first 5 minutes is kind of like building rapport, right? Like, hey, where you from? How'd you get there? You got kids, you got family. You hear all types of stuff. Military, like the guy I was talking about with Prime America. He tells me like all of his life story in like 5 minutes, and then it's kind of moving on. So what are you doing for work now? Right? He's telling me he's off a license list, so I know he's got a license, but he's an executive chef somewhere. So I'm kind of digging in on that. What got you into insurance? Okay, who are you with? And then he tells me Prime America. He starts telling me stuff. I'm like, oh, are you securities licensed? So now my mind's starting to turn. Like I don't need to just talk about the basics with this guy. I need to tell him how we have seminar systems. I need to tell him how he can park his securities license here. Those different things is like when you're talking to a typical recruiter, what they're going to tell you is why the Alliance is the best. Reality is we've got carriers, so does our competitors. We've got leads, so does our competitors, right? So we've got a lot of things that our competitors have. So what sets us apart? And I think that's the trajectory of our sales career here. And you can't compete with us when it comes to building. I mean, if you understand the power of the arc, you understand that it's put in place to protect you when you're hiring people, right? Like if you ever talk to any of these other people from different companies, they have a serious problem, and that problem is called debt roll-up. The arc prevents us from debt roll-up. It doesn't totally prevent you, right? But you can keep a closer eye on it. And if I see something fishy going off, I can go in and pause that pay. Whereas if I'm working directly with the carrier's going to tell me they're going to look into it. 30 to 60 days later, they're going to tell me, yep, that was bad business. By the way, here's 15 grand worth of debt that they racked up. With the ARC, we've got the power of controlling those things and keeping eyes on them so that agents don't get, for lack of a better term, screwed with hiring people. And so I think like from a building perspective, we've got the best system. When you talk about the glow bonus, like other companies are talking about their glow or their bonus programs where they pay, and that really tripped me up, where they pay, every month or every 6 months or every quarter. We pay Monday, Wednesday, Friday on our bonuses. And it's not that hard to get to a glow bonus. It's really like, it's what, you got to get to RM. So you got to have a $55,000 organization. Go hire you 5 people, get all of them to write 10K and you're there, right? Now you're glow eligible, get one of them glow eligible. So I think from a standpoint of where we stand with the Alliance, I don't think I haven't seen a better system out there to get you. If your goal is to get to the integrity partnership, one, I think now it's not that far away, right? Like if I got it in 6 years, and I don't think I did it fast, you know what I mean? I think people get to 500,000 within a year or two. It just took me a little while longer. I'm a little slower. But I think we've got the best place to do that. And from a sales perspective, yeah, we do have a lot of the same things our carriers got, but they don't have a lot of the things that we have. Like you understand when you're recruiting somebody and they have an advisor that they work with at their company, that advisor's taking probably half their commission. Chris Norris won't take anything from you. He'll only take 10% if you want him to do all the paperwork, which I will give him 10% all day long so I don't screw that stuff up. So I think that it works. And then when it comes to recruiting, like how are you guys recruiting too? Like that's a big thing. Like you've got to, if you're going to take the approach of, let's say you're going to do what Vinny's doing, 3 days in the field, 3 days recruiting, you've got to have those 3 days booked up. So what are you doing to get that booked up, right? Now, I don't care if you're using ZipRecruiter. I don't care if you're using License List. You've got to have appointments booked because it goes back to the schedule. The only way that you do things is when they're on your schedule. Most people approach this business like this. Hey, what are you doing today? I'm dialing today. What times are you dialing? I don't know. I'll probably start at like 9:30, starting dialing. That's not a schedule, right? When you go to a job, they don't tell you like, hey, pop in about 9:30, figure out what you're going to do that day, and then you can get out of here by 5:30. They don't tell you that, right? They give you structured, hey, you need to be here by 8 a.m. This is what you're going to be doing from 8 to noon. After that, you're going to take a little lunch break, and here's what you're going to be doing the rest of the afternoon. And a lot of us don't treat the business that way, and we're wondering why it's not working for us. Well, you're treating it like a hobby, not a job. And unfortunately, if you don't treat this like a job, you're going to find yourself looking for a job, right? So when you're setting this up, you've got to set, like, I'm huge on, like, if you've ever heard me talk, a lot of what I talk about is schedule, because I think that's a big part of the reason that people fail in this business. It's either that, their activity, they're not investing into their business, just expecting things to happen. There's several things that it could be, but most of the time it comes back to their schedule. So I'm really diligent on getting a schedule in place. So if you're looking at this as like, hey, Brandon, I want to go integrity partner in the next year. What do I need to do? Well, you need to sell so you can pay your bills, so you can stay in business with us, and you need to recruit to build a stable organization. Right. So when you think about that, whatever your schedule needs to look at, get with Steven, draw out, hey, here's what I want to do. I want to make a run for integrity partner. What do I need to do that? All right, here's what my sales schedule looks like. Here's where I'm going to fit in my recruiting. That's what you and Davies need to go over so that he has an idea and he can hold you accountable to that. And then get started on something like License List or ZipRecruiter. I don't care if or talking to people out there that you run into. Andy's like got a rule. I don't know if you guys have heard of the 6 feet rule. It's not COVID. It's a different 6-foot rule, but he says if I'm within six foot of someone, I should give them the opportunity, right? And he's like, I shouldn't make their financial decisions for them. I should just give them the opportunity. If you're ever with Andy, you'll notice that he does that. I mean, like he doesn't just say the 6-foot rule to sound cool. He absolutely starts. I mean, he will have a conversation with anyone. I was in the car with him one time. We were traveling somewhere, and one of his employees was with him, and he was talking to the Uber driver the whole way there. And he turns back and he looks at this person and says, why am I paying you? And the guy just kind of looked like, kind of puzzled, like, oh crap, am I about to lose my job? But what he was saying is, it's like, I'm talking to him, and your job is to be talking to people, and you haven't said a word. So why am I paying you? Right. So like, that's kind of like our mindset. This is your business. Why are you paying yourself if you're not doing these things? Right. It's easier for Andy to say that to an employee, but when you think about it, you are your employee. So what are you? Are you the coolest boss you've ever had? Or are you the boss that makes the GSD comment, right? You get stuff done. Because it's just a mental battle. And I get it. Like, there's days where, like, honestly, after this call, I would not mind just taking off the rest of the day. But if I do, that's not going to benefit my organization or me. Like, in the future, it'll be easier today, but it'll be harder next week because I got nothing in the pipeline. So I've got to work as hard as I can so that in the future, it's easier for me. That's what I'm going for, right? And Integrity, they will give you a very nice package if you do this. So you've got light at the end of the tunnel, right? Not to mention all the overrides that you're going to get in between now and then. All I mean, when you think about it, when you're building an organization, that's what freedom is to me, building an organization that still runs. But I think we do throw along that freedom comment kind of like loosely, right? Freedom does not mean like, okay, I think some people have this idea of once you build a big enough organization, you kind of just sit here and twiddle your thumbs. I wish I could tell you it was like that. I think it's actually more work because now you got 100 people that you're responsible for that are out here making this thing work. You got all their problems, right? And I'm not trying to like, I feel like I'm not selling you guys so much on building, but I'm just saying, like, it's not just a twiddle your thumbs. Now, it's very rewarding. It's it's like a very pleasurable thing to have someone that you recruit in, like Vinny. Like, Vinny is a very good story for me because when I found him, he was making $14 an hour, working 60 hours at a restaurant. Now he's been making 150 to 200 grand working, he'll say full time, but I promise you he only works like 3 days a week. He works about 3 days a week. He's gotten good at that. And now he's into his building phase. He found Jeff Schultz, who's, you guys might know, he's always on the leaderboards. He found Jeff Schultz with another guy named Julius, but he's got to build outside of that because Integrity is not, I don't care if his organization's doing $500,000 with that one leg. They're not going to want him because if Jeff decides to quit, he just lost all of his business. So they want stability. So how you're recruiting people in, you got to be talking to, again, use things that are free to you. Like, one, talking to the waitress, talking to the Uber driver, whoever, talk to them. You don't know who they're going to lead you to. That's something I had to get over. was like, yeah, but they're probably not going to do anything. So I was making a judgment. Like, you ever made a judgment on the sales side where you're like, these people ain't got no money. I ain't even going to ask no questions about safe money because I'm walking into a trailer and it's got a hole in the floor. And then the next thing you uncover, they got 250,000. Right. So you just never know. If you would have seen Vinny when I hired Vinny, you would have probably maybe said, I ain't going to hire him. And that would have been a mistake, right? Because he was very rough around the edges, dropping F bombs to court. And remember, he was in the back house of a restaurant, so this is how they talk to each other. This is what he's used to. He wasn't trying to be a complete jerk. I mean, there was some intent there, but if he wasn't happy about something, there was some F bombs going to corporate office. So it's just like seeing him develop over time, and now he's traveled. I don't think he's missed a trip since he's been here. So he's got to travel with us, and he's making more money than he ever imagined he would, right? Not to say that's where he wants to stop, but he's got to keep building. So that's why we got to work it into a schedule to build, because he's got a heck of a foundation with Jeff Schultz. I mean, his leg will do 100 to 150,000 based off of the production of about 5 or 6 producers. Just depends on what they do that month, but he knows he's got to extend out of that. So how does he do it? He starts building, right? And so he's in that phase right now. And I think if you guys will kind of lean on, like, if you're new, if you'll lean on Davies to help you. And here's another thing when it comes to recruiting, you want to be on those calls. Don't just send numbers to Davies and be like, can you call this person? If I'm you, I want to, it's kind of like the annuity appointments. I want to be involved in that annuity appointment so I can learn from that. Because at some point, we want you to be able to have these conversations yourself. If you have a $500,000 organization and you're still asking Davies to do a rudimentary recruiting call for you, you could see how that might be a problem. Like, there's no duplication happening throughout your system. So you need to learn how to get good at those conversations. Listen to what Davies is saying and why he's saying these. Usually every time I have one of these calls, me and the agent jump on a phone call afterwards so I can explain to them why I said specific things, because you're teaching at that point. You're no longer just doing it for them. It would be a grave mistake to just do it for them all the time. Believe me, take it from my experience. My first 2 years of the business, I tried it this way. I tried being the guy that would do everything for everyone, because it was at the end of the day, it was easier for me just to do it than it was to teach them. Problem with that is now you got more people coming in, you have this compounding effect, and you just can't keep up, and you've really set people up for failure, right? Because now they can't have these conversations because they've always relied on you. So you don't want to be that agent. You know what I mean? When my dad passed away, I had an agent, and I remember calling him up because I went ghost for like a week. I remember calling him up and I was like, how'd last week go? And he told me that, well, we didn't do anything because you weren't going to be available. Like that was kind of a turning point. That was when I first moved down to Florida. So like 2020. So, this is like a year in, and I figure out like, oh crap, like I've got a big problem within my organization. Everybody's relying on me. And that's not a good thing. You want to build duplication. So when you're starting to recruit, lean heavily on Davies and his team to help you recruit those people in, but be involved so that you're learning that stuff, right? And don't be afraid to like invest in some of these things, like a license list. Like it's not very expensive to do the license list recruiting. I think that's what you guys do, Omar. I think I'm not 100%, but these aren't expensive ways to go about it. But you got to have somebody calling those and booking up your schedule. So it takes an investment to make sure you're back into your calendar, or if you're mixing it in, it's always full, right? Because you want to put in the time now versus later. I promise you on that. You want to put in the time now, so that you can build up a stable organization. And that way you have more of what we call freedom. But it is a grind to get there. Like I think the freedom term gets thrown out, like, hey, hire a couple people, you won't have to do much. Like it's a grind. Like this business is a grind, until you get it to wherever you're looking to get it to. My goal is 10 million a month. That's really where I want to be, is doing about 10 million a month with the Alliance. And right now I'm doing about 600,000. So we got a lot of work. But here's the thing that I know: if I keep going down it without duplicating myself, I won't reach that goal. And if I do, I'll probably be gray by the time I get there. Right. So that's why I take the time to teach people. Like, we've got systems in place. I feel very confident when I'm hiring somebody into the business that I can get them up and writing business. That's not a challenge. My challenge is to get them to start thinking about building an organization. Because a lot of people come into it and they hit you with those things. Like, I want to see how I do with it first. If I start doing this, like, I know I got like 5 people. Like, why not go ahead and reach out to those 5 people? Because again, if somebody else talks to them in the meantime, they're going to sign up for something. So it might as well be with you, even though you don't know everything, which again, they don't really care. Then you plug them into people like Davies, you get them around the events. That's a key thing. Like, get them around the event so that they go and meet people, right? Go and meet other people. Like, Davies is flying around for you guys for free. It's not costing you anything for Davies to be out here. So I would look all the time to see, where is Davies going? I'd look at the Alliance events and I would recruit to those areas, tell the people who you got coming so they'll warm or welcome them in. And then they get to know people in their area doing this. So Davies is out there. I think you just said Salt Lake City. He's in today. He's out there in Salt Lake City. My question to you would be, and I don't know how many people are on this call, but I'd be interested to know, out of everyone on this call, how many people has one person going to Salt Lake to see Davies? Again, it didn't cost you time away from your family. It didn't cost you a hotel room. It didn't cost you a flight. Davies is out there serving for you. But did you have any intention of talking to anyone to try to get them to that meeting? And if you say no, then that's where we got to reevaluate. Okay, like, is your goal really to get to integrity partnership? Because if so, here's some things that we need to do. And it's not a blame game. It's just, maybe you don't know it yet. Maybe you don't know what you should be doing. So I'm trying to give you some direction on that. So that's what I would look at, is where do we have people that are doing, like, you see meetings that are happening all the time in Tampa. You see them, Jacksonville just picked back up, Orlando's picking back up, Atlanta, and Salt Lake City is another one. So are you actively recruiting to those areas? Because I promise you, your success will be much better if you have somewhere to send them quickly versus they're out in South Dakota and no one is around them. It's going to be tough to, and not to say it's impossible, but it's going to be tough to get that person up and running. So, was there any questions that popped up, Omar? Or are we?
Chan, do you see anything in the chat?
I didn't see anything come
Oh,
through yet.
Okay.
okay. Well, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer. But I'll leave you guys kind of with this. Is like, right now I couldn't provide more urgency of starting to build your organization. Yes, sales are important. That's how we make money. You've got to sell. You've got to get other people selling. That's how you make money. But the building side right now is, you have so much to recruit to. You have all these different options of things that we do that other organizations are not doing. So use those to your advantage and start recruiting people. And don't worry about knowing everything. I promise you, just trust me on this. Don't worry about knowing everything. Just get good at plugging them in touch with somebody who does well. Like, I think, if I'm not mistaken, on that leaderboard, Davies was the #1 salesperson on the team this past week. Is that right?
He was up there. I think he was top 5.
Okay. So do you think he could talk to somebody that about his success? Do you think after they talk to him, they're going to give a crap about your success or not? They're either going to see the opportunity and jump all over it, or they're just going to keep moving, right? But you might as well bring them to the table, I like how Noel Evantovich puts this. Don't make financial decisions for other people. Ask them if they'd be interested in something on the side. Get them connected to somebody like Davies. Get them connected to Omar. Get them connected to Chandler. Be on that phone call. Hear what they have to say and start building out your organization. You absolutely have time to do it. I just pick on him one more time. Like Vinny. When I started this conversation with Vinny, it was like, I only have 2 hours to recruit every week on a Monday. That is a lie, right? Because again, we just went through a schedule. But I promise you, if I don't get off the phone with Vinny, he'll keep me on the phone for 2 hours. You know how many interviews you can get in 2 hours? The same guy that's telling me you don't have time will talk to me for 2 hours if I let him. Do you know how many interviews that is? That's at least 6 interviews that you can get done in a 2 hour span. So it's not that you don't have time, it's that you haven't made time for it yet. So if you're interested in that, what I would say is get with Davies, get with Omar, get with Chan, whoever, I don't care. Get with your upline in the business, go over your schedule with them, say, hey, I want to implement recruiting. What's some good resources that you guys have available? Should I go ZipRecruiter? Should I go licenseless? What should I do? Start building your team. Don't worry so much about what you know. Get them plugged in with people that do know, get them to events so that they can meet other people and watch your team start to grow. It's a lot of work. You talk to a lot of people. Don't believe me? Like I've got papers I'm like kind of old school. I still write down stuff. But I've got papers all over of people that I've talked to. Like there's probably, I don't know, I'd guess just in this list right here, probably 200 different names. Like you can see how I do it. Let me show you all a good one. Like these are names of people that I talked to and I wrote down and I highlight them and stuff. And then I put them in my Go High level. I really wish I was a little bit better with that. But I'm not. So, but I've talked to a lot of people to get what I had 8 contracted last month. But do you know how many people I had to talk to get to that? Like there's a lot of work that goes into it, a lot of talking, a lot of people that will tell you that they want this bad, and then they get in here and do this, and they do nothing, right? Like that's just what you're gonna uncover. So the best thing that you can do is just keep plugging people in. You can't like what I always tell people is I'm responsible for picking up their phone calls, giving them coaching, give them the tools and the resources to be successful. Outside of that, it's up to them. Right? I can't make somebody do this. I can't want it worse than them. And you can't put that responsibility on yourself for their success. All you can do is give them those things. Coaching, pick up their phone call, which I know sounds like very elementary, but there's a lot of companies out there. Just do some interviews. This upline never picked up my call. I'll be in a house. They never answer my call. We answer the phone. That's a big difference, right? We give them the tools and the resources to be successful. All they got to do is execute. So you can't put the responsibility of the execution on yourself. You can only try to set expectations with them and give them the best of your knowledge and plug them into people, get them around to events. That's all I really had though, Omar and Chandler. Is there anything that I didn't hit on that you guys want me to hit on?
Man, that was plenty. I had to stop taking notes because I filled up my page. I was unprepared. I didn't have enough space for my notes. But no, Brandon, I appreciate that, man. Thank you for lighting the team up. So many parallels, right, between the sales and the recruiting. You don't have to know it all to get started, right? If you wait till you're a final expense expert to write a CVS policy, you'll never get done. Never gonna do it, right?
Yep.
And I agree. I've never talked to a single person that started recruiting that didn't have regrets about not doing it sooner. Just
Yep.
never seen it happen. So, guys, like Brandon, I appreciate you for your time. Thanks for jumping on here, lighting us up. Guys, I hope you're here. Hope you're listening. This is being recorded. We'll upload it, later, but go back and revisit this, man. Like I'm fired up. I feel good. I love the energy that you brought, Brandon, but it's not just flash, it's substance, right? Again, he's not an integrity partner by accident. He didn't trip and fall into that. Right. He had to work his face off to get there and he's still working. So, Brandon, I appreciate you, man. I'm looking forward to seeing you at Stage of Success. I will be there.
Absolutely.
And team, hey, Dial Jam starts at 2 o'clock. So it's time to get back to it. But I love y'all. We'll see y'all very soon. Brandon, thank you again for your time.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys. Call me if y'all need anything.
Will do.
All right, guys. See y'all.
See you, man.